The hour of 7 o'clock having arrived, I will call the council to order. Let the roll reflect that all council members are in attendance with the exception of Councilmember Balsanic. A quorum has been established. We're going to begin our meeting tonight by recognizing a community volunteer. We have a certificate of appreciation, and I'm going to look to John to present that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council member. I don't know if is Chris here tonight. I don't see him, but
Okay. Well, we can mention that.
I'll give a little brief introduction of why we're here tonight, Mr. Mayor and council members. We have a lot of incredible people that serve on our commissions during the city, and one of the individuals we wanted to recognize tonight was Chris Helly, who served on our Heritage Preservation Commission for the last 12 years. Now, the Heritage Preservation Commission performs duties to ensure that the historic areas of the city, different things that go on with housing additions and modifications to structures, are keeping with the historic nature of what makes Hastings special. And Chris has been serving in that role for 12 years. He brought a very important aspect to it being a historic contractor. So he was relied upon heavily on his opinion on whether things could or couldn't be done. So I wanted to recognize Chris tonight, thank him for his 12 years of service, and encourage others to become involved within the commissions in the city. So thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, John. Appreciate that, and please forward that with our thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we're blessed tonight to have Mary Scheide here from the Pleasant Hill Library to give us our quarterly update of what's happening at the library. Mary, very glad to see you again. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Hicks and council members and city staff. Thank you for time on your agenda to give you a brief library update. Our summer reading experience for children and teens kicked off today, June 6th, and it will run through Saturday, August 13th. We have a full slate of programs for all ages. You have some materials in front of you, which I will go over quickly. The Friends of the Pleasant Hill Library annually sponsor a Rip Your Float party to help us kick off summer reading. And that includes Rip Your Floats, of course, and all kinds of crafts and games. That's happening next Tuesday, June 14th, from 10:30 to noon, and we repeat it again in the evening, 6:30 to 7:30. The reading program is similar to what I've described to you in previous years. For children from birth up to entering 5th grade, they receive a game board that looks like this when they sign up for summer reading. And signing up is as easy as they write down their first name and what grade they're going into. And through a combination of reading and other fun activities, they earn up to 3 prizes throughout the summer. Some children complete it very quickly, and others take their time through the summer. Doesn't matter what pace you go at. Just by signing up, children can also enter a drawing to be eligible to win tickets to the Minnesota State Fair and Twins games. And this age group is invited to participate in an art contest, and the theme is your summer reading experience, and they can drop off entries through July 16th. Then for youth that are entering grades 6 through 12, so middle school and high school, their program runs slightly differently. In place of the game board, they complete short book reviews for every book they read. In exchange for that, they get a scratch-off card, and that gives them a chance to win some small prizes, books, and gift cards. And they can get creative this summer also and can submit an original bookmark design. The winner from last year, those bookmarks now are part of our program and are being distributed. And those entries are also due July 15th. With more than 64,000 visitors last summer at the library, we're expecting an equally busy summer this year. Our hours now through Labor Day are Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 8:30 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. The yellow sheet that you have in front of you lists all the youth and family programs that are happening just at our branch in Hastings in June, July, and August. Programs are on the front and the back. All the programs are free. Some of them do require registration, and those are marked. Our program guide, which is the larger multicolored booklet that you have, lists all the events that are happening throughout Dakota County, so at all of the 9 branches, including Hastings. We also have adult offerings. We have one-on-one ebook and technology help. We've got some programs on flower care and flower arranging. We have some people that are very interested in our art and craft programs for adults. The Leduc Book Group meets all year long, the first Thursday of every month. So for people that are interested in reading about history and nonfiction and talking about what they've read, we meet at the Leduc. And backed by popular demand, we have an antiques appraisal program. We had one earlier this year. We can accommodate, I believe, up to 40 people. Registration is most definitely required. You can bring in one item and have it appraised by expert Mark Moran. You can also just come and watch, similar to Antiques Roadshow. People are welcome to come and be spectators. It's 3 hours, and it is on July 21st. So again, I emphasize registration is required. You can bring one item. And the person who's doing the program actually will make house visits if people have larger items. So, in addition to our internet computers, our Wi-Fi, our study rooms, our fax machine, and our scanner, we recently added a free charging station. So for people that have cell phones and other mobile devices that run out of a charge or are getting close, the station has 8 different plugs on it for various different devices. So that's new to the library. I also want to highlight one new addition to our circulating collection, and these are called launch pads. They are learning tablets that are preloaded. They've got high-quality educational apps on them. There's no access to the internet on these tablets. We have 10 of them at Pleasant Hill, and they are for ages ranging from 3 up to 10. So it just depends on which one you check out. So they are in cases like this. The cases are empty, sitting on the shelf. You can look for them. They're on a first-come, first-served basis. They check out free for 1 week. And they have been very popular, and we have 10 of them at Pleasant Hill. Ours were all checked out very quickly the first day that we had them, which was back in April. There's a small postcard about those in the materials that I handed out. Finally, we will be out and about in the community this summer, promoting summer reading and our library services. Our teen advisory group will be marching in the Rivertown Days Parade. We will have a display at the Farmers Market several Saturdays in July. And we will be offering some activities as part of the free summer meal programs, both out at Three Rivers and at our Saviors. And we're very excited to be partnering with the City of Hastings Parks and Recreation Department to offer 3 story times in the park at your new Rotary Pavilion, which is lovely, by the way. And we hope to have other collaboration in the future. So summer's a great time to explore your local library. Bring the entire family in to get a free library card. A photo ID and proof of address is all you need. And with that, I will stand for questions. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for that fine presentation. It's really it's neat to hear of all the activities that's available here at the library. It's just a litany of interesting items for young and old, so appreciate all that information. Council, is there any comments or questions? Okay. Thank you, Mary, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. Okay, Council, we have before us the approval of the minutes of the regular City Council meeting on May 16th. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes of that meeting? Seeing none, they stand approved. We'll go to council items to be considered. Council, is there any further council items to be considered? Seeing none, we'll go to consent calendar. Council, what's your wish? Councilmember Nelson makes a motion to approve, second by Councilmember Brox. That motion is now before the body. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. We have awarding of contracts. A public hearing is our next item under the agenda. The first thing is a public hearing in regards to adopted ordinance to amend City Code 115, licensing and exemptions. Melanie?
Your Honor and Counsel, you have before you tonight an ordinance amendment that would change how we do licensing slightly. Right now, there's no ability for food vendors or vendors to set up on city property outside of a designated special event or recreational tournament. So the language before you tonight would allow for vending to be permitted on city property as part of a city-sanctioned event. This would allow it, for example, at Levy Park with all of our other activities going on this summer. So minor change. Staff would be happy to stand for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak to this amendment change for licensing? Okay. All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Council, what's your wish? Councilmember Alangi.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, I certainly respect that we've just had a public hearing and that nobody's come forward for that. I just want to check in with staff regarding the efforts to let restaurants or others who may, be impacted by food truck business know of the possibility, especially downtown or in other areas like along Vermilion Street or, along 55 where restaurants tend to be and where food trucks are likely to be. Was anything mailed in, anything received in any other method in terms of getting feedback?
Your Honor and Counsel, this actually was precipitated by some local businesses wanting to take advantage of setting up little carts and selling.
So restaurants that wanted to sort of extend their business, is that what we're talking about?
It would be, yes, that would be one option. There are others that maybe they have a little popcorn truck, for example, that they would want to set up. And right now, our current code wouldn't allow that. So this would be kind of a small step towards the food truck. We haven't opened that door completely yet at this point, Your Honor and Counsel, because it would be a city-sanctioned event. This wouldn't allow somebody to set up a food truck on a city street and serve.
Right. Agreed. Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. I'll make a motion for staff recommendation, which I believe is to pass this.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Lanci makes a motion to approve. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Councilmember Schultz and Councilmember Schultz.
Thank you, Your Honor. Melanie, I am assuming that with these vendors, then also they will be abiding by health code, State Department of Health code in terms of when you're making food away from your restaurant, there are various codes, and those will all be abided by, and that's covered here.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Melanie, a couple more questions on that. How many do we expect on giving out for permits? Do we have a number in mind? We don't want to be food truck race downtown all of a sudden, or at least in my mind, we don't want to be. Well, passing this, we'd do food trucks, though.
Your Honor and Counsel, it's, this is, I would suggest maybe a small step into allowing for vendors to be present on city property. They're not currently allowed to do that now outside of a special event or, like I said, a recreational tournament. I think it would be staff's perspective that this is a small step into allowing vendors to be part of other city programs. I don't know that at this point we envision food trucks lining up in Levy Park parking lot. I think that would, from what my understanding of the council, you'd want a little bit more process with that. So this wouldn't really allow for that, nor would it be staff's intent that that was what we were looking for. This could be, we want T-shirt sales, or we want somebody who's a balloon vendor. It doesn't all have to exclusively be food for this change. So to answer your question, Councilmember Nelson, I don't really know. We're going to take this summer and see what the interest might be, and I would expect that we'll have to regroup with the council if we decide, or if we find that there's a lot of interest in this, and it's something we haven't anticipated.
Okay. That covers all the other questions I had then. Thank you.
Councilmember Lanci.
Well, thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Melanie. So the decisions, how we make a decision for at least this trial, I guess it's not trial period because we're changing the code, but for the first year of this change, how would staff propose setting up kind of the gateway? How would a vendor indicate their interest? How would they learn about the opportunities? How would, how open a process would it be? How could we make sure we, in other words, that we stay on top of the possibility to make sure we inspire competition and that we are, being open to all, at the same time ensuring quality?
I think my answer to that, Mayor and council members, we've already had some interest. We've already had some folks reaching out and asking, how do I do this? And so for this summer, we're looking for ways to say, yes, we think this is a good way to help support some of the events that we have out there. And if we find that that is the case, that there's interest, my suggestion would be we'd want to maybe have a little bit more process behind it going forward for next year. That's how I'm envisioning it, Your Honor and
Okay.
Council.
So it sounds to me, Melanie, that you have the same thought that I have, probably much earlier and much better and much clearer, which is that we might open the door here to having vendors be there that inspire others to say, well, wait a second, why didn't I get the opportunity to do that? Why did that person get and I didn't? And we have to make sure that we're able to rejoin such feedback with, well, we did put this in a public forum, people interested in this could bid, or people interested in this could apply, or people interested in this could contact us. However formal, informal the process, I trust that we'll document it and that we'll continue to improve it as time goes on.
If I may, it might be parallel to what we've done with the events and activities this summer, where many of the events that were planned were based on suggestions from folks. And we've got that in our wheelhouse, and going forward, we'll probably think about how do we make that more open for others.
I agree, and I agree, and I think that because one event can inspire multiple vendors, that the complexity will, we hope, will quickly ramp up. And that then we'll use what we learned this year to create that process exactly as you say.
We're hoping for less complexity right now. So, but yes, I appreciate your feedback.
Can't
Thank
wait
you.
for it to get complex. All right, thank you.
Hey, council, we do have a motion before the body. Is there any further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have the assessment hearing for the 2016 Neighborhood Infrastructure Improvements. Tonight, this is in regards to the Bailey Street improvement, and this is in regard to the special assessment. So it's not necessarily about what's happening there in terms of the physical changes. Tonight is about the assessment and the money portion of the project. So that's a clarification. Ryan, welcome to the meeting, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I apologize for my glow tonight. I haven't learned to use sunscreen yet, so spend the last couple days outside, and I'm feeling it. So anyway, tonight we're here to consider the resolution in your packets adopting the assessment roll, final assessment roll for the 2016 Neighborhood Improvement Project. We're also here to conduct the hearing, as the mayor stated. So jumping right into it, just to kind of refresh and get everybody's frame of mind, this is the Bailey Street area. So it's reconstruction of Bailey Street. It also includes 4th and 5th Street, and all the alleys between A Street and 4th Street as well for that block up to Tyler. We do have a contractor on board now to build this project. The total project costs are now updated in the assessment report that you have in front of you tonight. That is $1,732,000 approximately, of which we see the splits up in the pie chart. Tonight, the focus is on the bonded costs. That is on the right side of the pie chart here. Just a hair over $1 million of street and storm sewer improvements, and the assessment and bonded costs that breaks down between. So here's a snapshot of kind of what we're talking about of the street and storm sewer improvements. We see about 80% of the dollar public funds going towards this project, and the remaining 20% in the special assessments that we're here to adopt tonight. The assessment rates, per city ordinance, the assessment rates are determined at 90% of the appraisal of the improvement. So we do an appraisal to get the associated benefit with these improvements, and we take 90% of that to determine our assessment rates through this process. So we have a different or a variation of improvements on this project, and this is kind of how they break down. For our street constructions that are areas that are getting new curb where there's none that exist today, that for residential properties is $75.85 per foot. The commercial properties, which are typically much larger in scale, their associated benefit breaks down to $54.05 per foot. Where there already is curb and gutter in place, those particular residential properties are $70.62 a foot, because we try to salvage the good curb and gutter that is in place. And then the alley improvements for the properties, the residential properties there, it's $19.18 a foot. And those alleys that abut commercial properties, those commercial properties see $13.95 a foot. So that's kind of how the assessment rates break down. This project is getting underway soon. It'll get finished up in the fall of this year. But speaking specifically of the assessments, the 20% that goes to funding the street and storm sewer improvements, payments are accepted beginning October 1st of this year, no sooner. Partial payments can be accepted. Any remaining amounts or the amount in full after November 30th are certified to Dakota County. And that comes with a $50 fee. There is no interest or fees when these assessed amounts are paid in full by that November 30th date. The assessments are distributed over a 10-year payoff period through your property tax statement. And that begins in the spring of 2017. And the interest rates, we haven't determined those yet. We determine those after bonding costs are factored in, and those are typically between 3 and 5%. And in recent years, we have interest rates in the mid 3%, 3.5. Here's just an example. Everybody's property is different, and you're calculated by your actual front footage. But if you had 66 foot on a standard lot, not a lot corner, this assessment rate is assuming you didn't have curb and gutter, but now you get it with the project in front of your home. That's $75.85 per front foot. That equates to a total assessed amount of just over $5,000. If you add in the interest, assuming 3.5%, that would result in a total annual installment of $675. If you escrow this in your mortgage payment, for example, that's about $56.32 a month. So just some math to consider what this actually means. One exciting program here at the City of Hastings, or available to residents on this project, is assessment abatement. This is a program to help those that qualify. It's an income qualification review done by Dakota County. What the city will do is we will send out information on who to contact and give you a lot more detail of this program towards the end of the summer. So that'll have all the information needed to be submitted and who to submit that to. It is important to note that that is determined and processed by Dakota County, not by the city. They turn their recommendations back in, and the abatements are distributed accordingly if you do qualify. And with that, Council, I turn it over to you to conduct the public hearing and consider the resolution attached in your packets. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, for that presentation. Very helpful. And I will open up the public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Anyone who's here who would like to speak to this issue regarding the assessments of the 2016 road improvement project, please come to the podium. Give us your name and address. And first of all, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
you. We're Terry and Dave Storholm, and we have a residence at 407 Tyler, which is on the corner of Tyler and the first alley that you're looking at redoing. And we are disputing this because the alley is currently paved, and it had been paved within the last 12 years, and we actually just went over and took photos tonight, and there is nothing wrong with the alley. There is not a pothole, there is not a crack in it, there's no issue with the alley at all. So, and we took a drive yesterday around the city, and there are tons of streets in this city that need a lot more work than a few alleys on the east side. And so we were disputing the assessment because you're looking at doing an alley that does not need to be done, all for the sake of a city building that sits at the end of the alley.
Okay.
I'd like to just expand on that. I'm Dave Storholm. The property that we have there is a rental property. We own a number of rentals around the Hastings area. And as Terry said, when we drove around the area bounded by Highway 55 all the way down to 2nd Street and Pine Street east to Bailey, there are virtually no paved alleyways in that entire section except our block. And it's a beautiful paved alleyway between Bailey and Tyler and between 4th and 5th. And the first question that kind of came into my mind was, why is this the only alley that's paved? And I thought, well, it was paved and paid for by property owners shortly after the city acquired the old lumber yard. And, you know, I think it was for the benefit of the city to use that alley. All right, no, go along with that. Well, now it's perfectly good alleys being torn up, and we're being asked to pay for it again. And the only benefit that I can see is that the alley slopes from Tyler down to Bailey. It's a downhill grade. And so when there's heavy rains, the water tends to accumulate on the city property behind the old lumber yard. And in this new alley that they want to put in, they want to apparently redirect the flow so it doesn't do that anymore. Okay, fine. Who's benefiting from that? The city, not the property owners. It's perfectly good for all the property owners out there. We aren't affected one iota by the rain, by anything. The driveway is in excellent condition. There's not a crack, there's not a pothole, and yet you want to tear that up and put in a new one when there's miles of unpaved alleyways in this section of the city. And so I don't think that particular block needs to be repaved, redone.
Okay, well, thank you for your testimony. I will say that it's noted that you objected to this. I will say, too, that we did have extensive discussions about all the alleys when we're going through the project. So we did have discussion about the importance of improving these alleys in this project at the previous meetings, and certainly glad to get your perspective tonight as well. Okay.
So what's the importance of improving that particular alley?
I only suggest that because the project has been ordered, and we're going forward with the approved plans, and tonight is the assessment part of it. So, you know, to go back and say, well,
you're having a hearing that we can give our 2 cents worth, but it doesn't really make any difference, apparently.
well, you know, like I said, we had public hearings in the past where we talked about the specifics of the project.
This was
Tonight,
the first notification we had of
well,
this
I
hearing.
can't speak to that, but I just wanted to know where we're at tonight. I just wanted you to be informed of that. Okay? So, and statement is duly noted. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Anyone else that would like to speak to the council? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Council, this issue is before us. Discussion. Councilmember Alonji.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do want to pick up on this point, just sort of make sure that we did send out public notices. I mean, the room was full when we discussed the project scope, but I just want to make sure that the address, and I'm looking at, I'm not reading email, I'm looking at Google Maps here, and at the address, as I understand it, that house definitely fell within the radius of mailings that we would have conducted. Can staff just sort of confirm that? I know you don't necessarily have a return, receipt on every piece of mail that you sent out or anything like that, but can you at least confirm that they would have likely received something, or likely would have sent them something?
Yes, Councilmember Longi. The 407 Tyler address has been in the assessment roll since the beginning, and we do send out public hearing notice and assessment hearing notices and have a certificate of mailing, and we have those mailing labels based off of our assessment rolls. So
Okay.
that's all I can say to that, other than
I think for the
Digging
sake, for the sake of thoroughness, we can certainly make a decision tonight, Your Honor, but I think for the sake of thoroughness, I would just ask staff and our consultant just to double-check the mailing list as it went out and just sort of confirm that something did happen. I don't need that in order to vote tonight, but I just would like that confirmation so that we can be sure that our processes are completely open and honest.
Is it possible that it went to the tenants and not to the owners? And that might have been a possibility.
That was where I was going to go next.
Okay.
While we're considering that, you don't have to answer on the spot. We're putting you on the spot, and we don't need the full answer tonight, or I don't need the full answer tonight in order to vote on this. But I also want to say, when I look at the Google map or whatever it is, that the application that I'm using here, and I look at the alleyway, so we're between 4th and 5th, and we're between Tyler and Bailey. And of course, the city building there dominates the eastern half of that block, and then there are houses on the western half of that block. And I look at that alley that cuts across there from my graphic resolution. I can't tell how improved it is. Could staff be as specific as you possibly can regarding the state of this? And I understand we're discussing the assessment and not the project itself. I'm not going to debate whether the project should be in or out, Your Honor. I just want, for the sake of edification in closing this loop, to understand what the status of that alleyway is.
That's fair, Councilmember.
Thank you.
yes, that portion of the alley is paved, and it does not have severe distresses on it. The reason for including it in the improvements is twofold. One is to bring a standardized section of curb and gutter to crown the road and transfer the road and treat the pollutants that accumulate into our storm sewer system and our some catch basins. And two is to get a proper section contiguous with the rest of the alley that's going to be paved. So the same engineered soil base and the same pavement section into one contiguous alley as you're doing it adjacent to the improvement project area. So those were the reasons why that was included in the alley improvements along Bailey Street.
Okay. My last question for now, Your Honor, regards the future, and I am sympathetic to the fact that we have worked on this before. I assume there was an assessment before for this work, and now we are doing it again. This isn't the first time I've heard this. We did hear that from other residents. I don't know if it was regarding the same block or not, but we have heard, I think it was maybe closer to 7th Street, there may have been some improvements, and that kind of went into an area that we've recently treated. I would like some sort of reasonable assurance from staff that we are not going to revisit this area again in the near future, that we are not going to be any time in the next, call it 10, 15 years, short of a natural catastrophe that shakes our roads loose, or that other reasonably unforeseen incidents, that we're not planning on revisiting these roads and alleyways and working them again in a manner that would require a third assessment in the near future.
I'll take that one, Councilmember Longi. I could
Thank
just comment on the various questions. There was not a formal reconstruction project to pave that alley when that happened 10, 12 years ago, whenever it was, and therefore no assessments were levied on any properties at that time. I've been around long enough to recall that, so I know we haven't done that process there. In terms of future projects, this is being set up such that we don't have major activity of any kind on the roads for decades, 30 to 40 years perhaps, before we have anything of significance again.
Sure.
I will say we would intend to put a seal coat down on the pavement next year, but that's all included as part of the project. It's not a separate charge of any kind, so we're putting the project together for the long haul,
Right.
for the long
Very,
run.
very, very helpful, Nick. If we didn't assess on that last project, I guess I'm just concerned that the constituent here has a memory of getting assessed. And I would recommend a conversation about that. And again, it can happen outside the scope of this meeting because ultimately, his honor is correct, folks. We did have substantial efforts to, and we know because we had many, many people in this room talking about what they liked about the project, what they didn't like about the project. Can we try this? Can we try that? And we really did try to give the entire community a fair shake to give their input. So the input does matter. It impacted, I believe, certain aspects of this project. So I would hate the thought of somebody coming in here and thinking that their voice wasn't heard or that we didn't care. But we do intentionally split those pieces out so that we can talk about what we want as a community first, and then we can end with an idea about what the price may cost, what it might cost, of course. But then actually talk about how we're going to pay for it, the split, that is, between the public and the private interests down the road. So that's why because it's so complex, we need to split it up into two separate hearings. So with that said, Your Honor, I'm done asking questions. The constituent may have more comments based on what I see them motioning, but it's up to you what you want to recognize.
Sure. Why don't you come to the podium just so we can get you on record? Thank you.
I have photos of the alley, if you're wondering about the condition of it. But, regarding bringing it up to the standards of whatever the rest of the project is, this alleyway was paved, as was mentioned, 10 to 12 years ago. There's not a crack, not a pothole in the section, other than behind where the city has their parking area. That's a little rougher. But the majority of the alley is in perfect condition. So apparently when it was done last time, it was done to very good standards, very high standards. Why tear it up again? I mean, that's silly. When there's all these alleys that aren't paved, you know, just move over a block and pave the next block over. It makes no sense.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Okay. Council, is there further discussion? Any other questions on the project? Any other discussion points? Okay. Councilmember Alonji.
Just in general, Your Honor, the assessment split for this project appears to be, based on my memory, very similar to past arrangements, recent arrangements, where about 20% local, about 80% citywide. Would that be a correct statement? We're staying in line with what we've done in the past and plan to do in the future? Okay. All right. Thank you, Your Honor. With that, I'll make a motion to accept the resolution.
Okay. Councilmember Alonji makes a motion to accept the resolution, seconded by Councilmember Vaughn. That motion is before the body. Is there further discussion to the motion? Okay, all those in favor, Council, I will caution you that since this is a city-initiated project, we need 6 out of 7 votes to approve, and so tonight, with Councilmember Balsanic absent, it would require a unanimous vote. All those in favor of the motion before us, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have awarding of contracts of the Vermilion River Regional Greenway Trail Project. Ryan?
Thank you,
Talk
Mayor.
about something kind of fun here, the trail project.
Yes, exactly. Mayor, members of the City Council, we did also on May 12th accept bids on the Vermilion River Regional Greenway Trail Project. We got 4 bids on that project, and tonight we're here to recommend Fitzgerald Excavating and Trucking Incorporated as the lowest bid on that project. It's important to remember that this project is about an 80%, 20% split in funding between federal grant program and the Dakota County Joint Powers Agreement. So That's where the funding of the construction dollars of this project come from. The city contribution is the soft costs of the engineering and project management, and that's about $95,000 approximately, is what the city's contribution is. But again, the amount we're talking about here tonight is split the way I just laid out. Fitzgerald Excavating is new to the city of Hastings. We haven't worked with them in the past, and so staff did do extensive research on this contractor, asking for financial information, projects completed of similar size. We checked with our colleagues in Dakota County and beyond, and really could not find any missed schedules, could not find any defective work done. Nothing of substance that would not allow us to recommend them as a contractor to get this job done successfully. We also did extensive research on Icon, that's the bridge contractor that will be subbing a large portion of this project. Same thing with them, they've erected a lot of bridges of this size in the state of Minnesota, so that is why we are recommending Fitzgerald Excavating tonight for their low bid of $819,886.98.
Okay.
And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ryan, for that presentation. Council, this item is before us. What's your wish? Councilmember Alonji.
Thank you, Your Honor. So this was a very thorough report, Ryan. Thank you very much. And in the background information, under the list of bidders, when the total base bids, you have an illuminating paragraph, and it looks fine to me. I just want to make sure I'm reading it correctly. At the bid opening, that there was a piece of the proposal that they hadn't filled out, or not filled out correctly, or not signed something, and that one of the contractors then disputed it. We took the time to review that. I assume it was that we as city staff took the time to review that in detail with MnDOT contract group through federal aid program and with the city attorney. And then I see the incomplete proposal form was not determined to be a material error, did not provide an unfair advantage. Was not determined, kind of passive voice, I'm a little bit of a stickler for that. I just want to make sure that our city attorney determined it and the MnDOT both determined it, that they both agree, and that we are all in agreement and there is no minority opinion that feels any differently about the matter. Is that correct?
That's
assumption?
correct. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Brox.
Hi, Ryan, I do have a question about one comment in the memo. It was that all 4 bids came in higher than expected. Do you have any idea what the reason the bids came in higher?
Well, I think that the most difficult part of estimating this project was the pedestrian bridge. I would say that was our substantial difference in what our construction estimate was. But, you know, I don't think it was out of the realm of what we were expecting as far as contingencies in the market and what we would see. So, yeah, I mean, I think that was the biggest portion, that if we could have estimated a little bit better, maybe a little focus on the pedestrian bridge portion.
And as it stated here, that Dakota County has some extra contingency funding to cover that, so that's not extra money that the city is going to have to spend or do. That's already contained in this bid, so we don't have to worry about that, right?
Correct.
Okay, Councilmember Nelson. Councilmember Nelson makes a motion to approve, second by Councilmember Brox. That motion is now before the body. Any further discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have accept proposals and authorize work for municipal utilities, cost of services, and utility rate study. Nick, welcome to the meeting.
Thanks, Mayor Hicks. Good evening, council members. Just following up on a request for proposals that the city issued about a month and a half ago for our helping the city with our utility rate study. We did get 4 responses on that, all from reputable firms and good quality proposals. We conducted an internal review of that between some public works staff as well as finance and administration to review them, and found that the proposal submitted by Ellers best met the city's needs at this time. It was in line with responding to the various elements of the request very well. And one thing that I wanted to note as well about the way they assembled things was they'll bring a combination between their financial expertise through the Ellers team and some engineering expertise through WSB and Associates that they partnered with on the proposal. So that was a highlight in their submittal. And then finally, the cost of the proposal came in within our budget, well within our budget actually, at about $25,000. So we were happy with that as well. So staff's recommending that we go forward in working with Ellers on the utility rate study. We would start in earnest this week, getting data in their hands for them to start doing some preliminary analysis, and then we will have several team meetings as we work through the project, as well as some workshops with the Finance Committee along the way to dial it in before we bring the final product forward in August. But that is the recommendation. I'll turn it back to you, Mayor Hicks.
Okay, thank you, Nick, for that presentation. Council, this item is before us. What's your wish? Councilmember Schultz makes a motion to approve, second by Councilmember Alonji. That motion is now before the body. Is there any further discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have a resolution, new home in the Old Historic District Standards, Brian Meyer for 648 West 6th Street. John, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. As the Mayor pointed out, the action we have tonight is a review of a new home within the OHDS district, the original Hastings Design Standards. I'll get into what exactly that means here in just a moment. This action was brought before the Planning Commission at their meeting on May 23rd. They did recommend or to take a vote, I should say, 3-1 to recommend approval. However, at the Planning Commission meeting, we did not have a majority voting in the affirmative, so there was no recommendation coming back from the Planning Commission. So the original Hastings Design Standards were something that were adopted by the city about 10 years ago to look at areas of the city generally bounded by Pine Street to the river, 55, and the railroad tracks that were not within the historic district, but did contribute to the historic nature and fabric of the city. You can kind of call it a historic district light in a lot of aspects to it. Unlike the HPC, we don't take a look at period architecture and look at very strict rules for the development of properties, but there are certain guidelines that we have within our ordinance that regulate the development of properties. And so it states that any time a new home is constructed within this district, which the home we're looking at here on the corner of 6th and Pine would fall under, that it does require this review. So the structure itself is located on a vacant lot here on Pine and 5th Street. The proposal is being brought forward by Brian Meyer. The property itself formerly did have a home on it. It's been vacant for the last couple of years. Looks something like this today. Mr. Meyer is proposing to put a house on it that would look something like this. The home would face 6th Street, and there would be a large garage over here towards the corner. The elevations of the house would look something like this, with the house being here and the garage being in this location. Now, some of the Planning Commission discussion focused on the garage. The garage itself is large. It's about 4 stalls altogether. It does meet the requirements of our zoning code on that, and the design of the structure we feel meets the elements of the original Hastings Design Standards themselves. One of the things that the standards take a look at is the compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. The surrounding neighborhood has a variety of architecture within it, has other ramblers, as you can see on the drawing here, and also some older homes within it. So the nature of that neighborhood is varied. So looking at a couple of different elements from those standards, the building width must conform to the immediate neighborhood average. Most of those lots are narrow. This one's wider. The previous home was long and narrow, but encroached into the front and rear setback, as to some of the other area houses. Bottom line is we think it fits within there. There's not a very strict development pattern established within that area. We think this would fit in with other homes. Porch is optional, but should be 8 feet. We have a porch in there about 6 feet, so it does have that element, and then the roof pitch itself. So we are recommending approval of this. The Planning Commission itself, majority 3-1, did state that they would support it. However, an official recommendation was not brought forward. And I think the developer, Mr. Myers, here tonight? No? Yes, okay. If you have any questions for him. Thank you.
Okay, council, this issue is now before us. What's your wish? I will state that, going through the material, I certainly think it meets all the standards that John had indicated that under this designation. Even though it's not 8 foot, it has a porch. The pitched roof, the rambler type, and even though this area does have somewhat different architecture, I think when I looked at this particular project or proposal, I certainly think that it does meet the neighborhood and that it does quote-unquote fit. It's very kind of, sometimes it'd be a very subjective review, as it probably was meant to be. And so that's how I feel about this particular project. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Your Honor. John, a question that came up in my review of it, the metal roof. I don't know a lot about it. Explain to me why a metal roof would be better or worse or whatever than the normal roofs that we see, the asphalt shingles that we would have. That's the part that really concerns me about this proposal.
From an architectural standpoint, we don't really have a preference one way or the other on it. It's allowed within the OHDS district. From a personal use standpoint, maybe the applicant could address that further if you'd like, to see why the metal roof was chosen over the asphalt for this location.
Perhaps that would be helpful too, John, but do we have other metal roofs, houses in town? I mean, I hear advertisements for that, but again, I went through a new roof a couple of years ago based on some storms. I never thought about that.
Sure.
Are there other ones in town?
Councilmember, I'm not aware of any off the top of my head. I imagine there are, but I can't think of any at the moment.
Okay, because my thought is that I'd be afraid of I don't live in the area, it's not my ward, but the constant pinging of rain, I mean, I've grew up on farms with pole barns and stuff like that too, and always hear that ping, ping, ping on the metal roof. Now, I'm sure you're not putting up a pole barn, type of thing, so I'm sure there's quite a bit of difference here, but I don't know what that is. And so maybe you could help explain to help ease my fears about that. Please.
Welcome to the meeting. Why don't you come to the podium and then, we get you for the record. What's your name again?
Mike Clem, Clemens Gun Construction, I'm the builder. A metal roof on a residential house has plywood underneath it, and there's insulation in the roof, whereas in a pole shed, obviously, you're going to get a lot more pinging. The roofs are becoming more and more popular now. It's a one-and-done kind of a thing. Instead of, in the lifetime of that house, they may put 3 asphalt roofs on, where one metal roof, it's one and done.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. What about the glare? As the sun hits it, if I'm across the street from it, am I going to get that metal glare off of a roof?
No, you wouldn't. It's a painted product. It's not like a shiny tin where it's going to glare or any mirror effect. It's a painted steel.
Okay. So
I don't think it would be a problem at all.
Okay.
And I think there are some metal roofs in town. I guess I couldn't tell you off the top of my head where they are, but I know they're becoming more and more popular.
Okay, great. Thank you. That helps me, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. We have further discussion here?
Your Honor.
Councilmember Schultz?
There's a garage to the back of that property. Is that going to be torn down? Or is that the other property?
No, there's no other garage on the property.
I've currently got an enclosed car trailer there for storage right now for all my lawn equipment and such. Yeah, that won't be there.
Okay, so when I drove past there tonight, there's a garage at the back end of that property. That must belong to the property.
That is the adjoining property. The garage is built about 2 feet off the property line. So that's the neighbor's house.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Vaughn?
A question for John. If this standard OHDS is 10 years old, how often have we used it? And is it of value if who goes over the standards of it?
Sure.
And is it really holding its own? Do we need it anymore?
Sure. It goes through different reviews. There's many actions that take place that are administrative in nature. Someone comes in for a roofing, siding, permit, porch, that will look at it administratively. We don't take too many of these actions forward to planning commission and city council. I think if we have 1 or 2 a year, that's a lot. So I think it has some value in there from a conformance standpoint. The one thing that this does that's different from, say, the historic preservation district, is we're really looking at what the existing neighborhood looks like and the characteristics of it and how this fits into it, as opposed to a historic preservation district where you're looking at a strict period of time, and regardless of what the homes surrounded look like, we're trying to fit that into it.
I might interject too and say there is history to this. There was a proposal I remember probably about 10 years ago. Neighbors were upset in the neighborhood because someone was coming forward with a home design that neighbors said, hey, this does not fit, and we object to this. But at the time of, with zoning codes and everything else, sorry. So the city took action to say, what can we do about, putting together an ordinance that could have people go through this process so we can, when future properties like this become vacant and people are going to rebuild in the area, that is somewhat sensitive to what's already there. And so this was basically initiated by the citizens who lived in the Second Ward, specifically, as I recall. Councilmember, I think Councilmember Vaughn still has the floor.
I was just following. I get it. I understand why we did it. I'm just wondering, how often is it used, and is it really holding its value, or was that it was created because of the neighborhood? I get that, but the neighborhood's changed. I mean, are we going to start setting up more districts throughout the city that just creates more labor time for staff to review this and bring to these situations? I don't see a whole lot more they could do in there, but I wasn't here 10 years ago when someone tried to put up a tower.
My initial thought is I'd rather have it than not have it. I'd like to have that review. Councilmember Alonji? I'm sorry.
Thanks, Your Honor. So to stay on this topic, so there's history, and I might even recall some of the same history, or at least maybe some subsequent stuff. There's history that we had a neighborhood that was upset at something that happened. So if we set up these design standards, then we could expect to see less upsetness. That might be a reasonable outcome out of the design standards, at least from the surrounding community. And I don't know if I don't know how we would track upsetness of neighbors, but I suppose there are ways for us to get a sense of whether or not we're succeeding here. My question for now is, what do we have, what have we done to allow neighbors in the area to hear about this? Has there been any reaction? Do we have a level of upsetness at all from the neighbors, or are they cool with it?
Sure. Are you talking about this specific issue?
In
or
this
just
specific issue, in this
general?
case here.
Yeah, on this specific issue, I'm not aware of any comments or questions that have come up from the neighbors.
And we have reached out to them, of course.
That, I don't think with OHDS we mail. We have a mailing associated with that, so I don't know.
So, Your Honor, that brings a concern to me. I mean, I'm 8 blocks away from this thing. I don't care personally, and it's not my ward, as Councilmember Nelson said. I mean, the ward representative isn't able to join us this evening, and I feel badly about that. I do think that we may be setting ourselves up here a little bit. Regardless of the value of this, and this is not a judgment on whether tin roofs or metal roofs are awesome, or 4-car garages are better than 8-car garages or whatever. I mean, again, I care, but I don't care. What I do care about is that we as a city appear to have an aspect of fairness in what we do, and that we actually, when we have a goal in mind, that we try to stick to that goal. If our objective here is to make sure that the neighborhood surrounding a property agrees with what we're trying to accomplish and what the applicant's trying to accomplish, and that we bear that in mind, then it does concern me that we haven't yet reached out to those neighbors to get a sense of how they feel about this. I think it's reasonable to assume that there may be some concern that we should at least address in a public forum regarding, however we decide to vote down the road, that we should at least give the public the opportunity to say, gosh, I can't find a metal roof anywhere in Hastings. I know of none in this entire lined area. I'm pointing to this, which is the same map I think you showed earlier. I see none in those lined areas. I'm not aware of a single metal roof in the area for any substantial structure that anybody's living in. And so people might come forward with that. People might come forward and say, I don't know of a 4-car garage. And whether or not we agree with them, we might still say, applicant looks good, we really can't stop it, it's not in our ordinance, we're going to pass it anyway. I'm not, again, going to debate that just yet. What I am going to say is I don't know that we've done our due diligence to make sure that this is meeting community standards if we set this thing up and then we haven't asked the community what they think. That's my point. Thank you for being patient while I got to it.
Councilmember Brox?
And to that point, Councilmember Longi, I did have a member of the neighborhood contact me and discuss with me some of their concerns. And so I'll bring those up just because we're talking about feedback. One of them was that it was very large for the property. It's taking up a lot of the property area. And compared to a lot of the houses in the neighborhood, there's more grass on some of the other properties. Another concern was just the size of the garage. That it was fairly sizable, and I understand from reading the memo that there's a purpose to that. It's not being built large for its own sake. It has a very specific purpose, so I can appreciate that. And then the other concern was just the direction that it was going to be facing. That has already been taken care of, as it's going to be, I believe, facing the 6th Street and not the Pine Street side. So I did hear some concern from a particular neighbor and kind of asked about some of the general neighborhood sentiment. And I think that it wasn't all negative, but it wasn't completely positive either.
You know, and I suspect, you know, you kind of took a little bit what I was going to say. I think neighbors also have the opportunity to follow what the city is doing, and sometimes we all have busy lives and it's harder to see, but they can certainly reach out to us. And someone reached out to you and talked about this project. And I am sure that if we had a project before us tonight that was 4 stories high and had a really odd-shaped looking building, that this room would have been packed tonight in that neighborhood. I think the opposite, to the point that the fact that it does meet a lot of the standards around the neighboring homes, the fact that it's a Rambler next to many other Ramblers, the fact that, you know, it meets those standards is why we're not seeing opposition to the nth degree. And in my view, that's why the ordinance is working. Councilmember Alonji?
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't know if there's been a motion made yet. I'm certainly not going to make one. If there is one, I'm very likely to oppose it, depending on how it all pans out. But it's not going to be, I want people to understand, it's not going to be because I think the house is ugly or not well constructed. I think that it's a perfectly lovely house. I don't know that we've done our job as a city in doing the due diligence and checking the community standards. This double line that we've got on this map should mean something. It either means that we try to adhere to community standards and do an analysis on it, or it means we don't. And we should drop it, as Councilmember Vaughn implied. Maybe a good idea down the road. But if we are not going, we don't have any clear sense that this fits community standards. It's 4-car garage in a place where there aren't 4-car garages. It's a metal roof in a place where there's no metal roofs. The neighborhood may be thrilled with it. The neighborhood may want it. The neighborhood may want the character of their neighborhood to change in this way. But we haven't done our job yet. So this is not directed at the applicants, not directed at the builder. We haven't done our job yet. And until I'm satisfied we have, I would oppose this.
Well, I just want to respond quickly. I would just say, Councilmember, I think the staff did their job on it, and I think the Planning Commission did their job on it. And through their analysis, they came forward with a recommendation to approve. Via the Planning Commission didn't, because they didn't have a full quorum, but by a 3-to-1 vote, if they had more members there, I'm sure most likely would have came here with a recommendation. So, and the staff came forward with a recommendation. And I think, you know, you should not probably judge this particular project based on that analysis. I think what would be better would be to, you know, going forward, the Planning Committee, the council, take a look at this process and come forward with recommendations in the future to change the ordinance, to do some of the things that you may be suggesting, but that this project be standalone as to the way this, you know, the procedures are set up for now. And it has met those guidelines.
Your Honor, excuse me, but I don't see how. I mean, I mean, this is, and again, it's not a slam, John, at all. I mean, you've been very thorough in terms of what you've presented, but when we ask, is there a metal roof in the neighborhood? No. Is there a 4-car garage in the neighborhood? No. I guess I'm failing to see on an objective basis how this meets the design standards. And so that's where I continue to be stuck, is I just don't think that we've looked at this and done the comparative analysis or done the community inventory necessary to look at this. And so it's a respectful disagreement with you, obviously, and a respectful disagreement with where staff are. I generally feel that staff do an amazing job, especially given at least one of the council members you have to deal with. But I do also think that in this case, we need to be more thorough. This is enough of a change. Either this barrier, this line on the map means something or it doesn't. On the other side of the street, fine. On this side of the street, what does it mean to have a design district like this?
And as I said in the beginning, I think, there is some subjectivity to it, and I think you might be alluding to that. Councilmember Schultz, I think you had the next statement.
Your Honor, my suggestion was, over the course of the next 6 months, that Councilmember Alonji is chair of the Planning Committee. Maybe they could discuss that, how they might want to change that. I used to live about 4 houses from this lot. And I remember when the house was there, and it was in tough shape. It was pretty ramshackle, and that was a good 20-some-odd years ago. And so having seen it torn down, and now that the lot is going to be repurposed, is actually, to me, a good sign for the entire area. And it is difficult in Ward 2, having lived there and drive through it quite often. And when I was on the Planning Commission, we would get, this is what we call infill development. Houses get old, they need to be torn down, and then they are rebuilt. And so it is a difficult thing to do to get them to match what's next to it without us having some very, very, very particular and stringent standards, which could price a home out of someone's reach. If you're the average Hastings family, that could price you out. I mean, we know how much it can cost just to redo from the HPC, and you've got to put in new windows. As Hedra just gave somebody a $20,000 grant because they need new windows in a historic home, and it's expensive. So I think that the original design standards were put into place for a purpose. I will agree, I was a little concerned that 3 members of the Planning Commission were not at the meeting, so therefore, this could have failed at the Planning Commission level had everyone been there, depending upon what their opinion was. So that is problematic for me. I am a little nervous about the garage, but I understand why you're doing it. I get it. That's okay. I lived 4 houses down. We had a very large 2-car garage there that someone built. It wasn't attached, but I liked it too. So I think, yes, you're right. Planning Committee should take a look at the standards, and maybe we do need to have some notification. It would be wise if the Planning Commission doesn't have everyone there. Maybe the discussion should be held off. At this point, though, I think we probably have to go ahead with the request for the special use. That's all, Your Honor. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Councilmember Vaughn, you had your hand.
I would just follow. The reason I brought up the question is I think it needs to be reviewed. I think it's like any plan that we have. We just can't have a plan and let it sit on the table. I think we need to use our commissions to our advantage. I don't think it's got to be the committee. I think our commission should be reviewing this one, so when this does come around, we make sure we did our homework. I do like the idea that we should be notifying neighbors. I get the expense to that, but at least we're trying. But I also get residents got to kind of watch what's happening in their neighborhood too. I'm in favor of this. I think I'm going to make a motion to approve this. I think it should go forward, but I do want to see that design standard gets reviewed if we're going to continue to use it.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Councilmember Nelson. And
My comment too, yeah. I realize we're becoming fully informed here, Your Honor.
Just fully informed.
Just one quick comment about the original standards. I'm speculating here only, but there's not a lot of buildable lots in this area. And this one became unique because it was torn down. And I think the other one, the reason why these design standards got put into place was because there was a small buildable lot, and they put maybe a questionable size house on top of that smaller buildable lot. And I'm thinking that's why these standards came into place. There's not a lot of empty lot inventory there. And it probably gave staff, kind of an understanding, here's what we're looking for if you're going to remodel your home. I don't think it's typical that these houses get torn down and then rebuilt to create these standards, but maybe that's something we should take a look at. One in place, it should be notify the neighbors, you know. If he was here, if Mr. Meyer was here saying, oh, I want to switch siding, you know, to something more economical, John would be able to handle that and say, you know, fitted with the neighborhood. So that's what I'm speculating, that that's why these existed, and maybe as we change this, if we change this, that could be taken into consideration as to when it should notify the neighborhood. That's all. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. We do have a motion before the body. Is there further discussion to the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion prevails. Okay. We'll go to number 2 on the resolution, the site plan. Intech Plastics parking lot.
All right.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. What we have before us tonight is a parking lot expansion at Intech. Intech's located at Spiral Boulevard within the industrial park. The area in red here is the expansion area for the parking lot itself. The parking lot has, I think, about 120 spaces presently. They're looking at adding another 36, so increasing it by about a quarter for the space that they need. Planning Commission did review this at their meeting on May 23rd, did vote 4-0 to recommend approval with limited discussion. It's a pretty straightforward plan. As you can see, Intech's on one side, the old UBC property, future Cranky Ape is to the east of it, and then vacant to the north, so the very limited impact on the structure itself. Would meet our requirements for pavement surfacing and curb and gutter as well. And that would be the location of where it would be in the red there. We do have representatives here from Intech, if you have any questions for them, or I can stand for any questions. Thank you.
Council, this issue is before the body. Councilmember Schultz? Councilmember Schultz makes a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Longi. Discussion to that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have a special use permit. Members, since this is a request for a special use permit, this will require 6 out of 7 votes. It would require a unanimous vote. Okay, John?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're just going right next door here from Intech over to the old UBC site for Cranky Ape. They're requesting a special use permit to operate a retail sales business within the industrial park district. Now, the way that Cranky Ape operates is a little bit different than some other retailers or other businesses with automobile sales license on. I'll get into that. So the special use permit is needed for their operation to take place tonight. So what they're looking to do is to relocate their existing consignment auction service from Lake Elmo to Hastings. What they do is they have all inventory on the site is on consignment. They offer online auction services to sell that, so they don't physically own the inventory. The cars itself cannot be test driven. The only customer interaction that comes forward is for people coming and picking up the cars and leaving. There's a high turnover of vehicles, and the company owns a specific type of dealer's license from the state of Minnesota called an auctioneer's license. So this is different from what you would have as a general automobile retail sales license as you would see for other retail dealers. There's not a repair facility, there's not a showroom aspect to this. It's the business going on here is the online auction and the storage of vehicles. For that purpose, we do find that it would meet the qualifications under the industrial park district, and it would not be an expansion of general automobile sales, which we have prohibited within that district in the past. Also to note, too, this would be Cranky Ape's corporate headquarters, employ about 30 to 40 people on the site. They do operate 6 or 7 other locations throughout the nation, and they'd be operating this from Hastings. So Planning Commission did recommend approval of this request on a 4-0 vote. No one from the public spoke for or against the item during the public hearing. Because of the unique nature of the site, we also did bring this before the Planning Committee of Council on May 2nd. We discussed general opinion of whether this would be a fit, the auctioneer license within the industrial park and the procedure for how to move forward. The general discussion from the committee was, yes, we think this is something that could fit within the industrial park, move forward under the existing special use permit criteria to do that. So we're moving forward with that tonight. This is what the site looks like today. Consists of one main building and some outbuildings on the site. There is an existing 8-foot perimeter fence, chain link that surrounds the site. One of the requirements we would have within the special use permit is that the inventory that's kept behind that fence be screened, so they will need to provide screening for the fence, either through a modification of the existing fence or construction of a new fence on the location. Another view of the facility here. This is their existing facility, I think, in Lake Elmo, and what their site looks like there. So we do have several conditions within the special use permit report itself. Some of the specific things to point out is that this would be specifically for an auctioneer license. This would not be for any other retail sales on automobiles, screening of exterior storage, and any other modifications for site plan would need to come forward as a separate application. Cranky Ape does not plan any other modifications to the site, albeit outside of the fence screening requirements and some interior modifications of the building itself. So we do have representatives present from Cranky Ape if you have any questions for them, or I could stand for any as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that presentation, John. Council, this issue is before us. Councilmember Langi?
Your Honor, I just want to take a moment, since we had the opportunity in Planning Committee to review this beforehand and see the applicant here tonight, to thank them for thinking of Hastings and for considering moving your operations here. I'm fully supportive of this. I think staff have done an excellent job of taking the Planning Committee discussion and minutes and moving that through the subsequent process. Everything that I see here remains consistent with what I saw personally during our committee meeting. So with that, I'll make an enthusiastic motion in support of staff recommendation.
Okay, and second by Councilmember Vaughn. That motion is now before the body. Is there further discussion? Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Your Honor. John, refresh my memory. I think I probably ask this every time a special use permit comes up. Can that exchange hands if Cranky Ape was to sell to somebody else? Is it with the building or is it with the person?
It would be with the building council member. However, along with that, the specific requirements for the type of license for an automobile auctioneer's license would continue. They wouldn't be able to modify that to something more general.
Perfect. Thank you for the refresher.
Councilmember Schultz.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think I know the answer to this question, but I just have to ask it. We're not talking about an auction in the typical sense, right? Not one where you've got an auctioneer saying all the stuff that I can't say.
My understanding, and Cranky Ape can correct me if I'm wrong, these all occur online. There's no physical auctioneer on site and cars for sale on site. It's all done online, and this is really for the operation of the online service employees and the storage of vehicles. Okay.
Your Honor and Councilmember, I just want to make sure that you weren't looking for a job. You know, that I think you'd make an excellent auctioneer, and I would support that if you wanted to go that way. Okay, very well.
Well, let me say that we're really excited about this proposal coming forward. Thank you to you, Jay and Brian, for being here. We appreciate the fact that you want to come to the great city of Hastings. I want to thank staff for working with Cranky Ape and look at some of the issues that what brought you here. And quite frankly, when you have productive discussions like that and an inviting atmosphere, you can get things done. So we appreciate your investment here in our community and jobs. So we appreciate that as well. Council, we do have a motion before us. Is there any further discussion to that motion? Just as a precaution, we will need all 6 votes to move this forward with a special use permit. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Thank you. Okay, next we'll go to comments from the audience. Are there any comments from the audience this evening? Seeing none, we'll go to announcements. Announcements. Council announcements. Councilmember Schultz.
I just was looking at the calendar for June. HEDRA was held last Thursday, so it's not the usual second Thursday of the month, so that meeting will not take place this week. It was held last week.
Okay, thank you for that. Councilmember Langi.
Your Honor, just a fun announcement. I was able to do a radio interview with KDWA a little while ago, and they'll be airing it at several segments tomorrow. and I give you quite the shout out.
Oh,
So I
really?
just wanted to let the council and the
Do you have
community
enough
know.
disc
that
to
if you
record
wanna-
that interview, Councilmember?
If, I'll try to make it as available and as widespread as possible, but I just want to let folks know, since this is my last year on the council, that, they were kind enough to interview me and talk about that. So I just want those who are interested in hearing some good news about the city and the work we do, there's a lot on there, and I just want to make sure as many people listen to it as possible.
Well, you're a fine spokesman for the city, Councilmember, so thank you. Is there any other announcements? Okay, seeing none, I just have a few. The Planning Commission will be meeting here Monday, June 13th at 7 p.m. at City Hall. On Tuesday, June 14th, which is also Flag Day, the Parks and Recreation Commission will be meeting at 6 p.m. at City Hall. On Tuesday, June 15th through Friday, June 17th, is the Future Readies Community 2016 League of Minnesota Cities Conference in St. Paul, and there's also the Transforming Local Government Conference. That's going to take place. I know I'll be attending, and some of you will be attending, and there'll be some exciting news coming from that conference. So I'm just going to put the Hastings Star-Gazette on notice for that. So when that conference comes, there'll be some exciting news for you. On Monday, June 20th, the Finance Committee of the City Council will be meeting to go over the 2015 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report at 6 p.m. at City Hall. Our next City Council meeting is at 7 p.m. here at City Hall on Monday, June 20th. On Thursday, June 23rd, Red Rock Corridor Commission, so Councilmember Vaughn, another one to take up an evening for you. Monday, June 27th is the next Planning Commission meeting at 7 p.m. And on Thursday, June 30th, the Public Safety Advisory Commission will be meeting at 6 p.m. at City Hall. There's no further business before this body. A motion to adjourn is in order. Councilmember Vaughn, announcement?
Yeah, I can make a quick
Please.
question. Is there, there's a cell phone tower open house, is it this Thursday, June 9th? Or did I put it in wrong?
I believe that's the case. I will verify that and send it out to the council.
Got it. I think it is this Thursday. I just wanted to bring it up to the attention that there will be an open house at a proposed cell phone tower.
Yeah, for the cell phone tower, yeah. And I'm sure it's on our city website. If not, we'll get it out there.
Okay.
But thank you for that reminder. Okay, is there any further announcements? Councilmember, or excuse me, Melanie?
Your Honor and Council, there's a neighborhood meeting at City Hall upstairs in our community room this Thursday, June 9th at 6:30. So we'll confirm that it's out on the website if we don't have it out there, but it is this Thursday.
Okay.
Thank you. That's an important announcement. Appreciate that, Councilmember. Without any further business before the body, a motion to adjourn is in order. Councilmember Schultz makes that motion, seconded by Councilmember Brox, a non-debatable motion. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. We are adjourned. Thank you.